It's not often that Apple releases a new type of iPhone, and today we saw iPhone 16e. It's their updated, more modern replacement for the iPhone SE, their previous budget iPhone. But at $600 with the tagline of latest iPhone greatest price, you would expect this phone to be just as good as a base level as the other iPhone 16 models. But the more I learn about this phone, the weirder it gets, and Apple is really playing both sides with a higher price, but also cutting features where they need to, and it's something that they have very cleverly hidden. See, with the introduction of the iPhone 16e, Apple did some creative restructuring of the iPhone lineup. While yesterday Apple offered a $429 iPhone SE and a $599 iPhone 14, today both of those models were discontinued and replaced with the 16e. And this is notable for a couple of reasons. One, Apple no longer sells a proper budget iPhone. The cheapest new phone you can buy from them now costs $200 more than their cheapest phone did yesterday. And second, considering the 16e replaces the iPhone 14 at the same price point, you would assume that many years later it would be better in every way, but it's just not that straightforward. I don't know, it just kind of seems like as many things as the iPhone 16e does great, there's an equal number of things that don't make sense at all. First, let's start with what the 16e does really well. The battery life on this phone is absolutely ridiculous for what you are paying. Even though the 16e is $200 cheaper than the standard iPhone 16, the battery life lasts 4 hours longer because not only has Apple reconfigured the internals to equip a larger battery, this phone is also Apple's first to be equipped with a new Apple design component, the Apple C1, which is a custom in-house made 5G modem. It's way more efficient than any iPhone modem before. All things considered, this is probably the best selling point of this phone is the price to battery life ratio. It's got to be the best it's ever been on the iPhone. It's also great that Apple got rid of the ring silent switch and replaced it with a new action button. I find this way more useful to myself, who always leaves my phone on silent. I also think the single camera on the back is pretty good. It's 48 megapixels now, and although it's just a single physical lens, you can do a 2x telephoto zoom using a crop in the software, which is a cool trick Apple's done on a few iPhones now. And powering everything is Apple's latest A18 chip, so that means the 16e is going to get updates for like 7-8 years to come. If you buy this at $600, you're going to get updates for way longer than you will probably own the phone. And while the Apple Intelligence AI feature suite is currently underwhelming, this phone will support everything that Apple adds and improves into the future. So if you're looking at this for something you want to hold on to for a while, I mean, at a baseline, it sounds pretty good, right? $600 isn't that bad. But then you start to learn a little bit more about this phone, and things that you would think are standard because they've been standard on every flagship iPhone since 2020 are not here. First of all, MagSafe is not available on the iPhone 16e. And it's not that it's not enabled, it's not on the phone, period. The only way to wirelessly charge the iPhone 16e is through 7.5 watts of Qi 1 wireless charging, which I think is a huge mistake because MagSafe has become a staple feature of the iPhone. You've been putting it in phones since 2020 now, almost 5 years at this point. In doing so, Apple made a huge market for third-party MagSafe accessories, and it's a feature that people have really enjoyed. I don't understand how a new iPhone in 2025 doesn't have MagSafe. But MagSafe's not the only obvious feature that's just missing on the 16e. We also don't have Apple's ultra wideband chip, which is the component of the iPhone that allows for things like precision tracking with Apple's AirTags or the ability to more easily find your iPhone when it's lost. Now that might not sound like a big deal, but Apple's been putting an ultra wideband chip in the iPhone since 2019 on the iPhone 11. If it was standard on the iPhone 11, how is it not standard on an iPhone 6 years newer? I know Apple had to cut some corners here, but this is another weird one. Next up, with this product, Apple is also continuing to show their commitment to privacy by making sure that when you browse on this device, Apple is not sharing that information with other people, but it doesn't mean that other people still aren't seeing what you're up to. See, it turns out that there's these companies known as data brokers that for years have been making profiles about you and your family online that have been taking advantage of your data and then selling it to other people people and making money off of your stuff, which is gross and disgusting and something you probably don't want happening, which is why I partnered up with Incogni, who sponsored today's video. Incogni works on your behalf to make sure that these data brokers stop selling your information, and they've got a really cool portal that shows you exactly all the requests that they've sent, what's in progress, and all of the ones that have been completed. And the best part is that Incogni does this as a continual service. So if new data brokers and bad actors pop up, they're found to be using your stuff, Incogni tells them to stop because it's your right to control your data. It's just if you don't ever tell these people to stop, they're not gonna. So take your personal data back with Incogni when you use code AppleTrack at the link down below to get 60% off of an annual plan at incogni.com/AppleTrack. A massive thank you to Incogni. I absolutely love these guys. Now, let's get back to the rest of the video. Next, I already mentioned this has the A18 chip, but it's not as good of an A18 chip as the same A18 chip in the other iPhone 16s. Because in the iPhone 16e, Apple's using a binned version of the processor, which has one less GPU core. And basically, these were A18 chips that got rejected for the standard 16, so Apple is reusing them in the 16e. It's a way to keep costs down, but when you actually use it, it's not gonna have as good graphics performance as other iPhone 16s. And all of a sudden, you can see where the 16 marketing starts to get a bit fuzzy. And like the processor, we see a similar story play out with Apple's new C1 5G cellular modem, as it doesn't support all of the kind of 5G that you would want to see out of Apple. Like, of course, it supports the standard sub-6 GHz spectrum of 5G, which is what you get in most parts of where you live. But if you want the ultra-fast, ultra-wideband connectivity that gives you 2, 3, 4,000 megabits per second, Apple's C1 doesn't support that, where the modem inside of the iPhone 14 did support ultra-fast downloads. And the same vibe also carries through Apple's other wireless technology on this phone. Instead of Apple's newest Wi-Fi 7 standard in the other iPhone 16 models, this has the older Wi-Fi 6 standard. Is it a huge deal for most people? Probably not, but it's still not the same as other iPhone 16s. And the same is true for Apple's home networking Thread technology, baked into every iPhone standard for a couple of years. And also on the 16e, it is just absent here. Then there's the new 48 megapixel Fusion camera system, which seems like it's pretty much one-to-one with the iPhone 16. And while it gets close, it doesn't even have all the same software features. Like notably, the camera control side button that comes on other iPhone 16 models is not on the 16e, but even in the software, you don't get the new photographic styles on the 16e that Apple made a huge deal about on other iPhone 16s. Okay, let me take a step back just to be clear here. I'm not listing out all of these negatives to try to tell you that the 16e is a bad phone or that nobody should buy it. In fact, with a lot of customers, I could see this becoming Apple's most popular model. No, what I'm trying to illustrate is that the 16e at $600 isn't that good of a deal, and Apple's acting like it is. It just feels like once again, Apple was so close to doing something incredible, and then they slapped a higher price tag on it, and suddenly the 16e is way less interesting for a lot of people. But keep in mind, this is Apple we're talking about, and everything they do is calculated. It happens for a reason. And while initially the 16e didn't make a lot of sense, the more I started to look into Apple and what they're trying to do right now, the more it added up. Historically, Apple's cheapest iPhone has always been aimed at Android users and budget buyers that don't really want to ever spend that much money on their phone. That is why the iPhone SE existed at that $400 price point since 2016 until now. With the 16e, Apple gets rid of that. They are absolutely going to alienate a lot of those cheap users that would just buy the new iPhone SE every time Apple updated it. But what they also did was give iPhone buyers who regularly buy an iPhone a new, cheaper option. And I think that's Apple's bet here with the new iPhone E series, because I don't think this is a one-time thing. And I certainly don't think this is only going to be a product that Apple updates once every 3 or 4 years like their budget iPhone SE has been traditionally. No, I think from here on out, we get a new iPhone E series every year along with the new iPhone models as a way to incentivize iPhone users that traditionally wouldn't upgrade at $800 to upgrade every year at $600. Now, I don't know if this works. I assume Apple probably has some data that says it wasn't worth selling a cheap, affordable iPhone, even with compromises at a low cost. We should just sell another mid-tier $600 model so the iPhone people buy it again. Because to me, this is the only way an iPhone 16e makes sense. And frankly, the iPhone 16e feels like Apple's official concession of the budget smartphone market. market. They've been in there at $400 since 2016. That was why the iPhone SE existed. But the iPhone 16e is not a new iPhone SE. This is a completely different model, a completely different strategy, competing against completely different phones and for completely different customers. And I'm interested to see how it plays out, I guess, because I'm still not over MagSafe not being here. That does not make sense to me at all. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like if you learned something new. Of course, hit subscribe for more videos on the iPhone moving forward. It is still going to be a big year for the iPhone with all of the iPhone 17s on the horizon that are looking to be pretty insane. That's all for now. I've been Sam. I hope you are doing well, and I'll catch you the next one. Bye-bye.